And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. In this video here, I think Lee's primary mission is simply centering up the pivot on our patch. And actually, it's more so centering the patch up on the pivot. Let me just show you guys what we're talking about. If I come back over here and jump into a nice fresh relaunch of Unity and hit play, and let's switch over here to our scene view. Now, right now, if we grab our geometry so that we can see our transform handles, and right now we're set at center, so let's go ahead and switch that over to pivot. You'll notice that our pivot point for the geometry is not in the center, it's over here at the bottom left-hand corner. But we don't want to move the pivot point to the center, because if we look at our actual X, Y, and Z position in space at the moment, it's 0, 0, 0. And Lee, you're wanting to keep those numbers, aren't you?
Yes.
Which means if
And
that's the case, we don't really want to move the pivot point, do we?
no, we actually want to build the geometry around the pivot equally spaced around it. So, which is another reason why we want to keep our size to a power of 2. So we've got an equal number of vertices on every side of the pivot when we do this.
All right.
Now, a lot of people are probably wondering, why? Who cares? It's like going, this is at 0, 0, 0. And based on our magic numbers we typed in, our next mesh would come in at 0 by 0 by 144. Or actually, with this layout, it would be 144 by 0 by 0. What's the problem? No big deal. We just add the width of the patch and keep going. End of story. The problem happens, though, when we want to know how far our character or maybe a sculpting brush is from the center of our mesh. Now, let's say we're doing something really complicated like scrolling our world. And we wanted to know when the patches, the terrain patches, are past a certain point, and we're using that for determining when they need to be removed. Well, if our pivot is in this corner and we head off into our scene way off into the distance, this row of patches is going to disappear sooner than if we went the other way and we traveled in the direction towards our camera, just by sake that the pivot point is in this corner.
And in
By
this case,
place,
it would be closer to the camera.
right. So it would last longer in one direction. Same with left and right. If we went to the right, this patch would disappear one whole sequence or one whole row of patches sooner than it would if we went to the left. This is not a desirable reaction. We want it to be consistent no matter what direction we go.
Right.
And the only way we can really do that without putting in a whole bunch of extra code that's not really needed is just simply build our mesh around the pivot and then keep our pivot at 0, and everything works fine. Luckily,
Okay.
it's not that hard to do. So let's
Go
go
on,
ahead.
yeah, let's go ahead and hit stop real quick.
Oh,
All right. And I think actually I already have. Think. Yeah, there you go.
yeah. I just happened to click on Visual Studio and then click stop before Visual Studio came up, but we need to open it again. All right. So how do we do this? Well, let's go down here to our create grid, and we need to put in another field. We'll make a var. We'll call this one offset. Now we have to calculate how far do we need to shift our pivot. Well, the way it works is we're going to take our size, which is the constant that we set up, and we're going to subtract 1 from it, because if you remember, our size is a power of 2 plus 1 to give us that extra vertice. So what we want to do is get rid of that extra vertice and just take into consideration the spaces between those vertices. So it's size minus 1. Then we're going to multiply that by our spacing, which we've currently got set to 3. We're going to divide that by 2 and make that a float. So that gives us our offset. So with our number of 49, we're going to take 48, times it by 3, which gives us 144, and then divide that by 2, which is 72. And it's going to offset our patch by 72. So we have to go in and adjust things here. So what we can do is now because our pivot is in the lower left hand corner of our patch, and we're drawing our patch to the right and forward of that pivot point, we need to subtract our offsets. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to subtract offset from our X and subtract offset from our Y, or Z, sorry, my bad. And we do the same thing down here. And actually, let me put it up here because we need to deal with this case. This is where notes come in handy. Where did I put it? No, I actually put it down there. Okay, so let's put it down here. Don't mind me as I reference my notes. So position X minus offset and Z times spacing minus offset. There, good. All right, so let's build that out. No errors, which is a start. Now let's go ahead and if you want to switch over and run it and see what happens.
Okay, and jumping over here.
You're going to have to move the whole world because our patch has shifted.
And look at that. We're at pivot, and it's in the center at 0, 0, 0.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. Is that pretty much it?
Yeah, that's all I wanted to show.
Oh, okay.
The
little bit of a pause you had gone, it's like,
it's lag, and you know, I was hypnotized by all the colors.
Oh, I gotcha.
It's like going pretty.
Okay, very cool. Well, then that keeps this nice and short. I like short videos. Those are always good. All right, so that's going to wrap up this video. Thanks a lot.